Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Rays Rewind with Bell, Bushman, and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. A Rose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Rays Rewind podcast. I am your host today, Drew Lang. Make sure you guys take the few seconds, if you haven't already, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Rays Rewind podcast, brought to you by Sick Media. I am solo hosting today, solo potting. My usual, the usual host, the guy who leads the charge on our videos, Evan, is unable to be with us today, so it'll just be me. And to be honest with you, we're going to just kind of try and keep this one a little bit on the shorter side because Rays fans, as you know, there is not much excitement going on with the team. Not a lot of good things to talk about. Pretty pessimistic time as a Rays fan. For those of you who are not aware and are more fortunate than me and did not watch any of the games this weekend against the Mariners, the Rays went into Seattle and got swept, put up a big goose egg in the win column this weekend. Had a few opportunities that we'll talk about here for a little bit to, even make it a much closer series, certainly in the first game. But yeah, got swept by the Mariners, who look legit. They are really good. The Rays always seem to kind of struggle in Seattle. Just off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I feel like they always struggle to win games there. And I think a few years ago they were able to get a series victory, but a lot of times I think my mind goes to 21. I think they got swept in a 4-game series there with a few walk-offs or 3 or 4 walk-offs in that one series, and that actually led to Wander's call up. And so they just never been a good place for them. And, unfortunately the Rays have put themselves in a position where they needed to have a good performance this weekend, to stay in a much better position for a playoff spot, for a wild card spot, and have the opportunities to make up some ground with teams like the Rangers being swept. The Royals, I believe, got swept by the Twins. Definitely, I think at least lost 2 of 3. The Yankees lost 2 of 3 to the Astros. So if the Rays could have come up with a series victory here in Seattle, it would have been a very advantageous series victory in terms of playoff positioning. But alas, they did not. And here we are with the Rays' current record standing at 57-62. And it's, let's just kind of get in. We're going to choose to be a little more optimistic than maybe some of the other Rays content out there that you've listened to, whether it's through the local radio down in Tampa Bay, or other Rays prognosticators that for good reason are very down on this team. And not to say that I don't agree with them, but I'm just choosing to let's call out some of the good from this weekend as well as some of the bad. We can't not cover both sides, but we're going to focus first. We're going to focus on a good thing. And the first good thing is, I think everybody can agree, Junior Caminero, it just continues to match the baseball. He is just, I think, exceeding most, if not all, expectations this year. Now, you can certainly poke some holes in his stat line. His OBP is not where we'd like it to be, right? He's not walking enough. He's got the double play, the ground ball double plays that he's on pace to set a new record for. And certainly at times has looked to be pressing, trying to do too much. But as a whole, if you would have told me that, let's see what his stat line is currently, batting .258 with 32 homers and 80 RBIs as a 21-year-old, technically 22-year-old now, but age 21 season, I think if you said that was his final stat line on the year before the season started, I think most Rays fans, probably all of them, would say that is perfectly acceptable. That would be a huge success for Junior in his first full season, knowing that he is going to be one of the big bats in this lineup. Pitching staffs are going to be focusing on him. It's not like he's going to surprise anybody, right? Everybody knew about him coming into this year, knew about the power, knew about the hitting ability. And, now that he had been in the league 2 separate times before, the tape was out. They were going to be able to attack him. And how was he going to adjust to Major League pitching and have, being able to kind of know the book on him a little bit and know his weaknesses and where to go at him in the zone, and how to approach him at the plate and how is he going to adjust. And I think you'd be crazy not to be just ecstatic about what he's doing for the Rays. I very easily could push 40 home runs this year. He's putting himself into some incredible categories too, just in terms of his age and his power. Let's see if I can find the MLB.com put out this article after he had his 2 home runs against the Angels this past Wednesday and the getaway day and their win over the Angels to get the series victory. That gave him 30 home runs. At that point, he had joined Juan Soto and Albert Pujols as the only Dominican-born players with 30 home runs in their age 21 or younger season. Soto hit 34 in 2019, and Pujols hit 37 in 2001. Very, very possible that Junior Caminero will beat both of those numbers. And for anybody, any baseball player, any baseball fan, to see a player on a list with Juan Soto and Albert Pujols, you are in some rarefied air. And those are players that you pretty much always want to be compared to when it comes to offensive statistics. So honestly, it's just incredible what he's doing. And he's easily, as the Rays finish out this year and struggle to stay in the playoff race, realistically, he is pretty much the number one reason why you should still be tuning in to watch Rays games, seeing how far he can get himself up this list of power hitters in their age 21 season. If he can get eclipse 40 and set, potentially some records for how young he is. And it's just been awesome to watch, and he's exceeded all of my expectations. And I hope that the Rays are able to find out a way to extend him going into the next season. I think that's got to absolutely be a priority for the new ownership group once they take over. And we still don't really know yet what their approach will be financially. But you hope that this group is going to be in a position and is going to have the philosophy of wanting to lock up guys like Junior, because, and I was thinking about this a lot during the weekend, watching the Mariners, cheer on Randy, and, just watching him be beloved by that fan base, seeing all of the players that came back for Ichiro's retirement ceremony on Saturday. The Rays, that is just something missing from the Rays organization, right? We obviously have Evan Longoria, and he got his pregame ceremony, this past summer, or this summer, against, in June, which is great. And he's obviously going to go into the Rays Hall of Fame next year when they're back at the Trop, and that'll be great. I'm sure that'll hopefully bring back some players that we can celebrate and, just kind of reminisce about as a fan base. But, when we see guys like Randy, who were celebrated by this fan base, move on to another team because essentially the Rays were not going to want to pay him. It comes, to finances, and, a team that was underperforming last year saw an opportunity to move him and get out from paying him and hopefully get similar production from cheaper options, which has completely failed this year. Our corner outfield has been atrocious. Seeing guys like Randy, who were so beloved by this fan base, moving on to another team, and that fan base getting to experience, having those players, having guys like Julio Rodriguez signed, having Cal Raleigh signed, having all these legends come back that played for them, Ken Griffey, Randy Johnson, Ichiro, having that I don't want to say tradition, but just the legacy of these players that stick around and really, you know, cement themselves as legends with a particular team. That's just something that the Rays, and this isn't news to any Rays fans out there, but that's just something that the Rays are so desperately needing and missing, that we as fans have missed. We've not been given that opportunity because of how the financial approach of Stu Sternberg and the ownership group and how this front office operates. And so I'm just hopeful that, I know that there's still a lot up in the air, right? We have the stadium situation that the ownership group's got to figure out, and that's probably the most important priority. We also have the Wander Franco contract situation, and expecting that to get voided, and for the Rays not to have to be tied up into paying him his contract. But we know that his legal team, they're going to do they're going to be making appeals and all of those legal proceedings that can delay things. And I don't know how that's going to affect the timing of, his contract being voided, assuming that none of the appeals are successful. So there's a lot still up in the air, a lot of balls in the air for the ownership group. But I just hope that they prioritize signing a guy like Junior and making a commitment to him long term before it gets to a point where, the rubber meets the road, and it's like either the Rays got to really pony up a lot of cash to keep him, or we're back in that same cycle of, okay, he's in his third arbitration year. It's 2029, 2030, and do the Rays trade him away for a package of prospects and peanuts, whatever. So we'll see. But for now, I mean, there's no reason to live that nightmare that could possibly happen in the next 4 to 5 years. But right now, it's just been awesome to watch Junior Caminero, and I'm pumped that he's just exceeded any expectations that I think Rays fans had for him this year. Even the highest expectations, I'm not sure anybody thought he would be at this point come early to mid-August. So great to see that. Let's go to some negatives now. The trade deadline acquisitions. The Rays did their typical buy-sell maneuvers at the trade deadline, which was a little surprising to me. We've talked about that on other podcasts. I really kind of thought, the Rays, they are good about not being, understanding the market, and they'll move off guys if the market deems that it's willing to overpay for guys, and they don't have an issue moving off of guys, like moving off of players. And so I thought, with how things were shaping up, it being a seller's market, a guy like Yandy Diaz, who's got team control for the next few years, Brandon Lowe, who's even got a club option for next year. I really thought some of these guys were going to go at the deadline. They didn't, which I'm also simultaneously made me happy for, prospects of 2026, and, the idea that they would keep these guys probably for next year, and just where that puts the team offensively. The bar is, we have a much higher floor with them on the team for next year. And so I'm hoping that's the case. But, I was surprised that they also went out and acquired, really three guys, if you count Hunter Fiducia coming up as another catcher. But Adrian Hauser and Griffin Jacks being the two main contributors, main acquisitions, getting rid of, costing the Rays Curtis Mead for Adrian Hauser, and I believe a few other prospects, lower level prospects. And then, Taj Bradley straight up for Griffin Jacks. And, to be honest with you, they haven't really, with the where the Rays were at the trade deadline, it really was going to take, okay, if we're going to buy, and Adrian Hauser's a half-year rental basically, but these guys are really going to need to make a difference. They're going to need to pay off quickly for it to, try to help propel this team back into a playoff spot. And what we've seen so far has been honestly just largely disappointing. It's just been a kind of a nightmare scenario for these trade deadline acquisitions. Griffin Jacks, I know that he's had some up and down moments, but on Wednesday against the Angels, yeah, he really, he pulled it together there at the end, striking out three guys in a row with the bases loaded. I mean, but he's again cleaning up a mess that he made himself, right? It's not like, Kevin Kelly, I know he's on Durham right now, but like Kevin Kelly came in and loaded the bases, and Griffin Jacks came in and just shut the door with 3 straight strikeouts. No, Griffin Jacks allowed the bases to get loaded. I think there was maybe a catcher's interference there on one thing, but on one hitter, but it's he got out of it. He was able to clean up the mess that he made, and that was a big moment for the team and helped them secure the win. But then he comes out Friday and gives up a couple hits there at the bottom of the order, and he goes 2-0 on Cal Raleigh, and gives up a sweeper. And hindsight's 2020. I think, I don't know. I'm sure they wouldn't have wanted to intentionally walk Cal Raleigh to put the tying run in scoring position with 2 outs. But again, it's when you're down 2-0 to Cal Raleigh in a count, and he's the go-ahead run. You just say, hey, we'll put him on. We'll take our chances, and we'll attack Julio Rodriguez, who's a right-handed batter. With Griffin Jacks, who I'm sure would maybe have a bit easier time attacking him over the guy like Cal Raleigh. So, disappointing effort from Griffin Jacks on Friday night. Really just took the Rays right out of it. I mean, they were leading all game, and that just sucked the air right out of the Rays' sails. I mean, it was one of the more deflating losses in the season. And that's a season that's had several deflating losses, and then Adrian Hauser on Sunday, he didn't look good against the Angels on Monday this past week. Comes out Sunday, 4 runs earned before he even gets an out, gives up a homer to Cal Raleigh, just didn't look good at all. Now, give him credit. I mean, he was probably 1 pitch away. The bases were loaded with Randy at the plate, down 4-0, 2 outs. He's probably 1 more walk or hit away at that point from getting pulled in the first inning, which would have been a mess for Kevin Cash and the Rays bullpen to clean up. And so credit to him for getting out of that, being a lot more efficient in the innings after, not giving up any runs. Really didn't have any trouble the rest of the time. I think he got through 5 innings, looked much better. And that was I think, as far as a micro win for the team, that was about as good of a one as you could have on Sunday. And so that was encouraging. But, for a guy that had such great success with the White Sox this year, in the 2 months that he pitched for them, 2.5 months, he's not a homer. He's not homer prone. He doesn't give up home runs, but yet he's given up, a few already. And in his starts with the Rays, he's not done anything impressive. I mean, he's certainly not put them in a position to win right off in these first 2 starts. So been largely unimpressed. And again, it's half-year rental. I don't know if they're considering bringing him back in any capacity, but at this point, with how the Rays season has just really nosedived, again, this is the struggle. This is the risk you take with trying to buy in a season that looks like maybe they should have sold more. Is you buy and you give up a guy like Curtis Mead, who, it's not like he was this great, he wasn't showing you a whole lot this year, but I think a lot of people recognize that maybe it's due to a lack of consistent playing time, which we have seen as Rays fans just in the last couple of years with a guy like Jonathan Aranda, who seemed to finally, this guy who's had all this great pedigree in the minor leagues and just never got the consistent playing time with the Rays. And then last year, you started seeing him get more consistent playing time in the second half, and especially into September last year, really started putting together some really great at-bats to the point where you thought, hey, this guy could be a big contributor for us next year. And he's exceeded what I think a lot of people even expect out of him. But nonetheless, it was like this revelation of, hey, he finally got the playing time. He's starting to take off. And I think with a guy like Curtis Mead, that's something that I think a lot of Rays fans want, maybe not a lot, but I think that you could make the argument that he was a similar type player who just needed the reps, who needed the playing time consistently to see if he could finally take advantage of that playing time and start showing the Rays fans and the Rays organization the kind of player that he's been in the minor leagues and the pedigree that he's built for himself. in the upper levels of the minor leagues, and has yet to shown here. So to get rid of a guy like Curtis Mead for Adrian Hauser, at this point, you basically just gave up Curtis Mead for nothing, because if Adrian Hauser is not going to contribute to this team in a meaningful way to where this team can actually make the playoffs, then you essentially gave Curtis Mead up for nothing. And I think at the end of the day, no matter what happens, especially if the Rays don't want to bring back Adrian Hauser, and I get he was like Zach Littell light for even cheaper. It's just going to be disappointing to see. I think the Rays will be looking back at that trade and saying that was kind of a waste of Curtis Mead. So hopefully they can turn it around. Griffin Jackson, Adrian Hauser, but we will remains to be seen. One more good for us, Brandon Lowe. He looked great this weekend. Coming back from the plantar fasciitis. He's hitting home runs. I think he had home runs in 2 of the 3 days on Friday and Saturday. I've been really impressed with Brandon Lowe. I think, him playing at Steinbrenner has been a big help. But outside of that, he's kind of had like a 2 to 3 week period here at the end of the first half, and then kind of at the beginning here with this plantar fasciitis where he's been on the injured list. But he's at 271 batting average, which for Brandon Lowe, I want to see what his career average is. His career average is 249. This is far and away his best since he's been playing. He had a 270 average in 2019 when he only played 82 games, and a 269 average in 2020, shortened season. But since 21, he's never had an average above 247. So for him to be hitting 271 with an 806 OPS, 22 home runs, and we're still, not even in mid-August, really thrilled with how he's playing. I think it's an absolute slam dunk that he gets his option picked up by the Rays over the offseason. And honestly, I could see them trying to maybe extend him similar to how they extended Yandy this past season, during this offseason, adding on another year or two. He's just so valuable as a power hitter from the left side for this team. And, as long as he's healthy, that's really been the key. As long as he's healthy, it's, really more about that than anything. He's going to put up the stats that, we've been accustomed to seeing this year. And we'll see if he can push 30 home runs. That would be, I think, a really great accomplishment for him. And so it's great to see him, come through for the team this weekend. And also too, he's been looking, he's played some first base now that Aranda's hurt, and he's looked pretty good over there at first. He had a really great pick on Friday night, I believe, with Junior's throw, and showing some versatility over there. And I believe his defensive metrics at second this year are pretty down. So, I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind for next year and potentially a year or two after, as the Rays figure out what they want to do with him. I hope they keep him. I expect them to. But just nothing but good things from Brandon since he's come off the injured list. And let's hope that he can stay healthy through the remainder of the season. Stop me if you've heard this before, but one of the bad things from this weekend was the Rays bullpen woes just continue. I've already touched on Griffin Jax giving up the game on Friday, a game that the Rays were leading for 98% of the time. And then Griffin Jax works himself into a tough situation with 2 men on against Cal Raleigh, who hits a go-ahead 3-run homer with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th. But again, Saturday's game, less on the bullpen, right? More on the starting pitching of Joe Boyle. It wasn't a particularly great day as a whole on Saturday, losing 7-4. I don't know if Mason Englert did give up a run. But, I will say, and then on Sunday, the Rays never did take the lead, but they were clawing back. They were fighting back, got down to 4-3 when it really looked like it was going to be a really ugly game after, the first 5 batters or so for the Mariners. and they fought back, got it to 4-3. And then the bullpen, this is, again, maybe won't show up in the stats like Friday's game would, right? Where it's, very clearly the Rays were winning. They blow the game late with a dramatic home run that they give up. They never had the lead on Sunday, but in my opinion, sometimes these kinds of games are just more frustrating because it's the tack on runs that you're allowing at the end of the game, right? The Rays fought back to get down just one run, and Clevenger comes in the sixth, has a great inning with just the one walk. But then, Baker gives up the home run to Naylor, and then Edwin Uceda's got, gives up a few hits and another run, and just for that lead to get back up to 3 runs, it's just really deflating. And I was kind of questioning, again, hindsight's 2020, but even before it happened, I was questioning the use of Baker in the 7th there against the heart of the order. Baker is somebody that's had a really high home run rate this year, despite, a pretty successful season for him. His home run rate has been really elevated. And so for a guy that's been prone to giving up home runs, I wonder why you would put him in the situation where you're facing all of the power bats for the Mariners. I would think maybe a guy like Uceda, who's really been dominant over the last several weeks, you bring him in for that heart of the order there in the 7th, and then maybe put Baker in the 8th. Again, hindsight's 2020. Who knows how Uceda fares? He's certainly give up his fair share of home runs earlier this year. But just disappointing. I mean, again, just the same old story where, not saying that they would have won the game on Sunday, but, you're looking at, close to a dozen games, I think, at this point where the Rays, you could make the argument, would have won or should have won. But the bullpen just not stepping up in any meaningful way, and, blowing games or allowing tie ball games to turn into losses. It's just kind of the same old story. And honestly, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to be a fan of a team that performs that way more times than not. And it's just impossible for a team to make any serious, run at the playoffs, or to start any serious, significant win streak when the bullpen's been as unreliable as it has been for the last, month and a half now. So more of the same, unfortunately. And the last thing we'll cover is the playoff chances for the Rays fading fast. They are 5.5 games back of the wild card. As I mentioned before, missed out on some good opportunities this past week to make up some ground on the Yankees in particular. The Royals lost 2 of 3. The Rangers have lost 4 in a row. The Guardians lost yesterday. Like, there was, a lot of opportunities for the Rays to, get themselves back within, 3.5 games, maybe even, lower, fewer than 3 games back from the wild card spot. And then at that point now we're feeling a lot more excited about their playoff chances. And unfortunately, they just couldn't take advantage, and they set 5.5 games back with, let's do some quick math here. They're at 119 games played. So that's 43 games left. So they're going to have to go to get to 87 wins. Let's look at last year. The second and third wildcard teams were both 86 and 76. So that means they're going to have to go 29 and 14 to finish this year to get to that record, which doesn't feel obtainable. 2023, 89 wins was the second or the third wild card record. I mean, we've seen records like in the National League in 2023 as low as 84 and 78. So it is possible that they only need in the mid 80s. But again, it's just time's running out quickly. For a while now, we've heard about how they're, ready to make a playoff run and ready to get back on a win streak. And we just haven't seen it. They're not playing good baseball. And so, at this point now, you got 6 games left on this West Coast road trip, and then you come back and play 2 against the Yankees at Steinbrenner. And then you get a stretch against some teams, St. Louis, Cleveland, off the top of my head, which will be a big series. I think it's 4 against Cleveland. So there's really opportunities here for the Rays to still play to gain ground in the wild card because they are playing teams that are directly in front of them. But yeah, I mean, they got to go out and win them. They got to go out and win them, and there's not a whole lot of optimism for that because they haven't proven that they can. I mean, I don't know when the last time. I can't remember the last time they had a 3-game win streak. They haven't had a 3-game win streak all second half. I think the last 3-game win streak they had, that would have to be then when they swept the Royals back in June 24th through the 26th. So can they go out and win the next 5 of 6? Yeah, sure. Why not? But they haven't proven it yet. Certainly not in the second half. So disappointing to say the least. And just kind of frustrating. If we felt like we had a glimpse there from May to the end of June where things were looking really positive, and this team was clicking on all cylinders, and that has just they've not been not able to get out of this funk that they've been in since the beginning of July. So we will see. They play 3 against the Athletics this week, and then another 3 against San Francisco. Go out and win 5 of them, and then I think you maybe can still hope. You got to hope for some other teams to play poorly too, but at that point, if you go 5-1, I think that puts you at a 8-4, 7-5 for the 7-5 for the West Coast road trip, the dreaded 4-city road trip. Maybe you're still in position at that point. I think anything less than 5 wins is, I think that's the final nail in the coffin. So let's hope they go out, show some energy tonight in Sacramento against the Athletics and through the rest of this trip, and then get back home and see what happens. So that'll do it for us, for me at Rays Rewind. We will be back maybe this week sometime, maybe Thursday. We might wait, maybe Monday after the West Coast road trip ends. But Evan and I will be back to discuss the Rays again, either later this week or early next week. But until then, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already. Appreciate you guys listening. Y'all take it easy, and we will see you guys real soon. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with L. Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.